as I said, it's a good night's work for Chelsea. And Damien, although not a vintage performance, you were very impressed with a lot of what they did tonight.
Yeah, I think they got asked some questions and they came up with the answers by a very, very tough Porto team that I felt they dragged the game into the gutter, you know, with their in a tactical sense, where they made it difficult, made it awkward. Chelsea couldn't get any real passing going. But they didn't feel sorry for themselves. They capitulated a little bit like Juve did. They dug in, they defended really solidly, and they got their goal, and then they got the second one laid on, and they put themselves in a great position. You can't win every game pretty. It can't all be nice, fancy stuff. Sometimes you got to ask some tough questions, and you got to answer.
But we talked about it before the game, Brian, and I asked the question, would Chelsea have the stomach for the battle against a Porto team who we saw scrap for everything against Juventus in the last round? Was that the case tonight, that they battled out this result?
Yes, it wasn't. I'd say it was an efficient performance. It wasn't sparkling. None of the front players did well, which is, you know, we talked about them before the match and said they hadn't been brilliant, and they hadn't scored enough goals given the quality and the amount of money that was paid to bring them into the club. Tonight they relied on the defensive stuff and a solid formation. Didn't take too many risks, I felt, and a lot of ginging the ball forward and hoping for the best. Now, in fairness to Porto, they pressed them and they disrupted them. What was the word you used? They brought it to the gutter. A little bit harsh on the breath, but they certainly disrupted Chelsea's flow. But they got that first half of the job done very efficiently with a 2-0 win, but without it being, it wasn't a great watch, Tommy, you have to say. And
one foot in the Champions League semi-final, a lot of work to do yet in the second leg.
Tuchel came in, I felt they had a bit of a chance. He's had a good record in this competition, got to the final last year, and he knows his way around, and he had a very good squad of players to work with. Yeah. So I'm not surprised that they're in the position they're in, which...
Very strong position.
Yeah.
A bit of ginging in the gutter, not what you'd expect from a Champions League quarter-final. What about, though, a Champions League victory for Chelsea in Seville? They'll do it all again in the same venue next Tuesday, but in a really good position after a 2-0 victory over Porto. Goals obviously define how you view games, and at half-time, for the first half hour, certainly, you guys were talking about how well Porto did and how many questions they asked of Chelsea, until this Mason Mount goal changes the whole balance of the tie, Brian.
Yeah, and Chelsea had a disappointing first half hour, really. Hadn't created an awful lot or troubled the goalkeeper. And just at this stage, they started to come in the match a little bit. Damien did a piece at half-time, so do. Jumps in, makes a rash decision, gets in front of Mount. Brilliant bit of skill by him. We did say that he's been the most impressive attacking player for Chelsea this season. Lovely drag back and very deliberate finish into the far corner. Has a little look at the goalkeeper's position, knows the only spot is into that far corner, driven low and hard, and he did the job. And it gave Chelsea a little bit of, I'd say, comfort and relaxation to head towards the second half, that the game would open up a bit, and it did. But it took them a while to add to that tally.
When you look at matches like this and they're so tight, and we call them a tactical battle, moments like that, defensively, particularly, you felt it was a bad mistake by Zaidu. They become massive, don't they, Damien? Yeah,
when games are this tight and both teams are setting up as doggedly as they are, it's a case of who blinks first. You know, who's going to be the first team that makes a critical error. And unfortunately for Porto tonight, it was Zanussi. He had no business trying to go and win that. There was no benefit. The risk-reward for him trying to win that was far outweighed. The risk far outweighed it. You know, there was no benefit to him even winning it because nothing was going to come of it. So it was unnecessary.
He's thinking, maybe if I nip in here, I can start a counter-attack.
Yeah, but you're still 70 yards from goal. You know, maybe around the edge of the box, midfield players can take those types of risks. But right in the edge of your box, when everyone's set and everyone's in position, doing what they're supposed to do, well-drilled, well-organised, and then a rush of blood, a moment where he decides to nip in and win.
Tommy, he's normally playing left back. I mean, we've only seen them playing three centre backs twice this season. When they played Manchester City, they held them to 0-0, lost the other one 3-1. But generally, he plays on the left side of a four, and he's an adventurous left back when he wants to. And even in the game tonight, there was lots of times where he left his post and decided to drift up the pitch. So his instinct wasn't to be that rough, solid defender, and he made a bad mistake. It was a poor decision, and he didn't get the ball. And against Mount, that was, he was such a clinical finisher. It was a brilliant goal in the end, but a bad
Brilliantly
mistake.
taken by Mount as well. Bad decision by the defender. So when we look at the Porto side of that scoreline, 0, are we talking about them wasting chances, or is it that resilience that Chelsea showed that you talked about a few minutes ago, Damien?
I think resilience from Chelsea. I mean, Porto created a number of good opportunities. Nothing too clear-cut. I mean, a couple of half chances. This was a really good chance. Mendy beating all ends up here, and then they had a chance from a corner. Again, Mendy does really well. But this is part of the dogged display. What you want to look for when you see this is how many players Chelsea have back, and every player working. The intensity that they're all moving at. They're all moving in sync. They're all exactly where they're supposed to be. A lot of questions were asked of them. They needed the goalkeeper to come up with some reasonable saves. Here, Rudiger tries playing offside, which was probably one mistake they made. But again, Mendy comes up with a pretty decent save for them. But their intensity is what I admired about them tonight. And when you work that hard, you know, that old saying, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I certainly felt that Chelsea got a little bit of luck, it must be said, with a couple of these chances.
They're not really clear-cut chances,
no,
are they?
They're not clear-cut, but sometimes they can creep in.
What about this moment?
Well, I tell you, anywhere else in the pitch, I think that's a Stonewall free kick, and I think there it's a Stonewall penalty, to be honest with you, because there is a movement in his hands. You know, it's not a case of he bumps into him and his hands are up against him. His hands move away from his body, and then that is a push. Now, VAR looked at it, but the referee obviously didn't deem there to be enough contact, but I was under the impression that if there was contact, then it should be a penalty.
You wonder what the conversation was there, Brian, that the VAR looked at it and the referee felt, I've had a good view of it, I don't need to go and check it, I've seen what's happened. But as Damien says, there's definite contact and a definite impact on Marega by the defender.
Yeah, well, look, he felt the two hands on his back, and he felt within his rights to go to ground. I don't know why Azpilicueta did it. It wasn't like he was about to get the shot away straight away. He still had a bit to do, but it looked a penalty to me. I don't understand why the referee didn't go for it. But look,
seen them given, I think, is the.
Yeah, I don't like the phrase. I knew you might use it. But look, let's say they got away with one. Yeah. That's what I.
Do you agree? Because Damien made this point before the game that Tuchel has come in and built his Chelsea team so far defensively. Come in the middle of a season, it's not working up front. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But that this resoluteness or resolution, leaving aside the West Brom at the weekend, is taking them so far, and that's not another clean sheet in Europe as well.
Well, all managers with a bit of common sense, they build it from the back. You make sure you're solid defensively, because if you concede in goals, it's very hard to keep winning matches. We've seen some managers, allegedly the current Serbian manager is one who doesn't mind playing it open and trying to win 3-2 or 4-2, but 3-2 as they did against Ireland. But generally, most managers go about it to stiffen up defence. In Frank Lampard's time, there seemed to be more emphasis on attack, and they did concede a fair number of goals. He's had the advantage again that he had a good few players to pick from when he came in. He's reviewed it. He reviewed it from the start and went with the back three and put Alonso in the team, moved up Azpilicueta to one of the centre halves, but he can be an attacking right side of the centre half, and they'd signed a solid goalkeeper as well. So the basic commodities were there to make themselves solid, and then he's got the two holders in midfield, Jorginho and Kovacic. So the material was there for him to do that, and he's done it. They're now a very efficient team if you leave out the West Brom performance at the weekend, and I said they would be more solid tonight.
But I'm not sure Abramovich is a big fan of efficiency. You know, he handed Lampard £200-300 million for a certain type of product. So
I think it's corroborating what you guys were saying about the spirit, certainly. In an attacking sense, though, so I guess the next part of the game is that part of it, and all the money that was spent, particularly on Havertz and Werner, Brian. And you were looking at them tonight and wondering, kind of scratching your head a bit about where it's all going wrong, or why isn't it working?
Yeah, he said there, he used the word lack of precision was the word he used. I think he meant lack of precision in the passing. But I just feel that you play the three of them and they're all a bit lightweight. Some days it works, they're dominating the opposition, they're on top of the ball. Look at that. You know, he just comes across Havertz and he's so easily beaten. And in fairness to Porto, they forced them to play some of that long stuff. And Chelsea players didn't react to it. They all seemed to want, I want it directly into me fee and then I'll be very good. But when it was knocked a bit long to them, they didn't do well with it. They didn't look like they had the physicality to deal with the pressure that was being put on them. And there was a massive chance with Werner. He never looked very confident going for it. And unfortunately, when he gets into the penalty area, confidence seems to have drained almost completely. I'm sure it'll come back for him again. The goals will come back because his technique as a player in general is very good. He has outstanding pace as well. We just see another long ball forced by a bit of pressure up on top of Havertz, who was the false nine. He was almost the vanishing nine tonight, I'd say, rather than the false nine.
So, yeah, it was sort of Werner trying hard, Havertz sort of a bit of a disappearing act. Is that?
Yeah, Havertz looks a shadow really of the player that we all expected. You know, Werner is trying hard, he's working hard, he's closing down, he's doing all the little bits, but as soon as Pulisic came on the pitch, I mean, he shows exactly the type of, you know, movement, timing of the run, and a wonderful finish here. And he's desperately unlucky for that to come back off the underside of the bar. But he showed more in the first 20 seconds of coming on than Havertz did in all the time that he was on. So, listen, there will come a time where Tuchel will have to get the best out of all these guys, because that's what Roman Abramovich demands. He demands good football and obviously trophies.
Yeah.
And that's why he changed.
I bought you all these toys.
Pretty much, yeah.
Make the most of them. Ben Chilwell was another one who came in the summer, not always getting his game, as Brian says, with Alonso playing. But how big a goal is this in the context of this tie?
Brilliant. I mean, he does so well here. You see him here at the bottom of the screen, he sets off, and when you're a wing back, you can afford to do that. And I mean, it was a loose touch that let him in, but take nothing away from what he does here to go around the goalkeeper and a neat and tidy finish. I mean, great run to put the pressure on in the first place to be there, but you know, he had a good game tonight, and that goal is crucial. I mean, that changes the complexion of the tie massively. 1-0, it's still kind of, you know, borderline, but I think 2, the way Chelsea are defending at the minute. No, I know they did have a collapse against West Brom, so I won't say that they don't have it in their locker, but I think it puts themselves in a really good position.
Do Porto have anything up their sleeves for the second leg? Suspended players come back.
They have Oliveira back into Rami. Both of them give them a little bit more in the attacking sense. They were powder puffing their attempts tonight. Not that they lack physical strength, but they just hadn't got enough
cutting edge.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say, Tommy. I think Chelsea have done enough with that 2-0 away win.
Away win, of course, 2 away goals as well, even though the second leg's in the same venue. Strange times indeed we're in.